Start my talk. So it is basically based on the three books I am writing. One is on the Rig Veda, another one is on the Ramayana, and the third one I'm just as we speak I'm writing it and about to publish like in the January of next year. So and I got a kind of opportunity because of the grace of Rama and Krishna to connect these three ancient texts that we have into a single thread of chronology and geography. Uh, so some of the findings I'm actually presenting to this auspicious audience, and not worry about the chronology part of my presentation because it's in the kind of state of evolution, and even I have a difference of opinion with my friends. So that's not to be focused. So I'm starting with the basic terminologies for establishing whatever I'm talking about. So basically, we have in our Itihas, we have got a Rigvedic period. There is no dispute about it, where we have early, mid, and late Rigvedic parts. So three parts of the Rigvedic period, and we have an Aitihasic period, which is we know Rama comes first, and then comes the Pandava. So we have a Rama era and Pandava era. So that is basically about our chronology. I mean, irrespective of whether whichever exact absolute timelines that we focus. So basically, we have the Rigvedic period, which is considered as very ancient. And in this two periods, because there is a difference in the terminologies that is being used. So we can see the Panchala, as one of the earliest speaker in the morning, they mentioned about that Panchala is not mentioned in Rigveda. It is partially true and partially we can say not true, because there is a tribe called Trutsus who are very much mentioned in a high dominance mentioned in the Rigveda. And whatever studies I have a clear understanding that the early ancestors of the Panchalas were the Trutsus, and you have so many kings who are belonging to the Trutsu lineage in a very high dominance mentioned in the Rig Veda. So, as far as I am concerned, Panchalas are very much there in the Rig Veda. Not only very much there, they are the central part of the Rig Veda, even more central than the Pandava line, that is represented by the Samvarna and Kuru and the two descendant families, like Kauravas and Pandavas. So there is a centrality to the Panchala ancestors in the Rig Veda. So much so that you can say this Rig Veda is basically a kind of a text which is dominated by the Panchala ancestors, that are the Tritsus. So if I look at it, just to explain this slide, you have this Panchala itself diversified into many tribes. So it's a kind of a confederation of Bharatas, Srinjayas, Tritsus, Somakas, and the Krivis. There are five confederations, including the Krivis, forming the Panchala Confederacy. And there are so these Bharatas, Srinjayas, Tritsus, and Somakas, and Krivis. All these constitute the Panchala Confederacy. And in that, it's not like it is everybody is in the same chronological space. You have the Bharatas coming as the earliest, early pre-Rigvedic kings, because they are older. Bharata kings are older than the pre-Rigveda. And then comes the Devavata, another king. And then comes Srinjaya, then Vadhyasva, Divadasa, and Pradardana, Paijavana, and then Sudas, Sahadeva, and Somaka. So these many number of kings are mentioned in the Rigveda. Of that, Bharata becomes very famous. So the lineages came to be known as Bharata lineage. Srinjaya become very famous. So there are Srinjayas. And Somaka is again famous. There are Somakas. So in Mahabharata, if you look at in the Kurukshetra war, Panchalas are described. Sometimes they are described as Srinjayas. Sometimes they are described as Somakas. And of course, they are Bharatas. And they are also mentioned as Panchalas. So all these older ancient ancestors of the Panchalas are mentioned in the Mahabharata, and Just like the Kurus are called the Pauravas or as Bharatas, the Panchalas were very much called as Srinjayas or Somakas in the Kurukshetra war. So that establishes the ancestry of the Panchala into the Rigvedic period. And then you have, I have in the left hand side, I have mentioned about the lineage starting from Manu. So it's all going to 8000 BC. So here I agree with some of the ancient chronology which starts in 8000 BC and etc. So we have Manu, Ila, and Pururavas, Ayus, Nahusha, Yayati, and then Panchajanas, the five kind of people who are descendant of Yayati. So in that you have Yadu, Turvasu, Drahyu, Anu, and Puru. You know the Yadu, Turvasu, descended from the first wife of Yayati, that is Devayani, and the other three from Sharmishta. And that in that Puru you have Bharata as a subsect, subdivision of Bharata, some lineage branched off as a Bharata. In that you have three diversions. Again, this is also you can see in a comparative analysis of Rigveda and Mahabharata, the Kushikas and the Panchalas. That is Trutsu Panchala, because the older name, ancestral name Trutsu. And then you have Samvarana and Kuru, which is the third lineage. And it is only the third lineage which is diversified into the Pandavas and Kauravas. And Mahabharata is pretty much a book which is focusing on the third branch of the Bharatas, that is the Samvarana and like Kuru, Kauravas, and Pandavas. Whereas in the Rigveda, you have a high dominance of the second lineage, that is a Trutsu Panchala lineage. And of course, Kushikas, because Vishwamitra is a Kushika. So you have a Kushika lineage also very much dominantly mentioned in the Rigveda. And so I have put a dotted line there. So Trutsu Panchala. So that is what we are now focusing on here. And instead of the absolute chronology, I have mentioned like terminologies like pre-Rigvedic. So many people are pre-Rigvedic. So irrespective of whatever timeline I'm putting, so many people are very ancient, like in 8000 BC, etc. And then you have early Rigvedic people. Some of the kings are early Rigvedic, and the dominant ones are like early Rigvedic Divodasa and Sudas, very dominant kings. And you have middle Rigvedic kings like Sahadeva and Somaka. So one of the synonymous word of Panchala is Somakas, is because of this middle Rigvedic king called Somaka. This is completely based on the geography of Rigveda, which it is coming in my first book, Rivers of Rigveda. So here the central region of the Rigveda, that is the most sacred region mentioned in the Rigveda, in the earliest mandala, sixth mandala of the Rigveda is mentioned. Here it is very surprising that the region what Rigveda mentioned as Vara Prithvya, because of the geographical description of it, like to the south of Saraswati and the north of Drishadvati, we can very clearly understand it is Kurukshetra. Even the only problem is the name Kurukshetra was not there when the Rigveda was composed. So the same region is mentioned as Vara Prithvya in the Rigveda in the earliest mandalas. And then you can see in the subsequently, if you triangulate with the Rigvedic data with the geographical information in the Mahabharata, you came to know there are four corners to the Rigveda, the Kurukshetra. That is called Taranduga, Aranduga, Ramahrida, and Machakruka. So there are four corners. And these four corners currently are Tirthasthans in the Kurukshetra region, the Rantuk Yaksh, then Biharjaksh, Ramrai, and then Sink. So these places are there, part of the pilgrim circuit in the Kurukshetra pilgrim circuit in Haryana. But you can see the same thing mentioned in the Rigveda. And this is also mentioned as the ancestral place where all the Bharata lineage diversified. So I mentioned about three branches of the Bharata, like Kushikas, Trutsu Panchalas, and the Samvarana Bharata, that is Kuru, Pandava, Kaurava lineage. Everything diversified from this particular four-cornered Kurukshetra. There are three holy places mentioned in this Kurukshetra, that Ilaspada and Manusha and the Bharati Tirtha indirectly. So three holy places in Rigveda, that is the oldest text of humanity. It is mentioned. And Manusha is related to Manu. So it is the kind of starting point of Manu, and his daughter Ila is also deified as a goddess and as a priestess. That is mentioned in Rigveda. And her place is the Ilaspada. And the patron goddess of the Bharatas, that is Bharati, also worshipped in that region. And you can see some of the Rigvedic suktas, like I quoted two of them, 6:27 and 5 and 6:27, 6. Two kings, Abhyavartin Chayamana and Srinjaya Devavata. So one is a Panchala king, because of the name Srinjaya, and another is a Abhyavartin Chayamana is a Anava king. Anava means Danava or Daitya, like that it is mentioned in the Puranas. But in the Rigveda terminology is Anava. So they were joining together and fighting with their enemies, that is Turvasas and Vrichivans, in this particular area. And it mentioned about many rivers like Haryupya, Yavyavati, where this particular fact battle. So I have identified that rivers here, and it is part of the book. You can see, the Haryupya is another name of Drishadvadi, and Yavyavati was a ancient channel of Yamuna, which was running parallel with the Haryupya in the northern part. So they are running parallel, and these uh, two enemies were cornered into that Haryupya Yavyavati area. That is the Vrichivant. They were cornered, and these two kings were able to defeat them. So this is a kind of a very ancient period where even the Danavas or the Asuras and the Devas were all together in the same place. And this is a kind of an expanded view of that holy sports. So you can see the 0 point, which is the Gadli, through which the river Apaya was flowing. It was an ancient channel of river Saraswati. To the north, to the left side, that is the west side, is Manusha, and to the right side is Ilaspada. So this is the kind of a 0 point, or the real point of origin of all these Bharata lineage, that is we can garner using the Vedic period. And of course, automatically this refutes Aryan invasion theory, etc., because the origin is here. And so nobody can now take the Saraswati to Afghanistan or anything like that. So just time is a corollary of whatever this geographical analysis. Automatically it comes out because of the geographical analysis that the oldest text in the oldest mandala in the Rigveda, sixth mandala, automatically tells everything was in the Haryana Kurukshetra region, and so it's not possible. So now you can see here what I'm expressing is there are a lot of migrations. That is, we can get from the Rigvedic mandalas, as well as in comparing it with the Mahabharata. So one of them is that there was an early east to west migration of the Samvarna Bharatas, because the Panchala king Sudas, Panchala means the Tritsu Bharata king Sudas were very powerful. He was very powerful. So he was able to expel the other branch of the Bharatas, that is the ancestor of the Pandavas and Kauravas, to west. And he is Samvarana. So he because of the infighting, the less powerful king has to migrate to westward. And it is also captured in Mahabharata. If you look at the Vamshavali of the Bharatas, they mention Samvarana was defeated by the Panchala king, and he has to flee to the west. So that is this captured, and it is also captured in the Rigveda, wherein in the Dasharachna battle, if you look at the of total 10 tribes fought against Sudas, the Panchala king. Of this, one tribe is named as Puru, and this Puru is none other than the Samvarana, and he has joined forces with the Anava king Kavi Chayamana, who is basically the ancestor of, descendant of the Abhyavartin Chayamana. So few generations earlier, during Srinjaya period, they were all friends. They were together fighting common enemies. But after a long period of time elapsed, in the Suda's period, he became an emperor, and because of that, he has defeated the Anavas, and the other third branch of the Bharatas. They were all fled to westwards, and from there he is trying to fight back. And as part of that, there is the Dasharachna battle occurring in the Parushni river, that is the Indo-Pakistan border. Very interestingly, so it's something like an Indo-Pak war. So in that battle, all the 10 kings got defeated, and after that defeat, this Puru, that is Samvarana, has moved, and he lived on the close to the place where the Sindhu river was descending from the mountains, and this is also the place where there is a western river named Sarayu, not to be confused with the eastern river in Uttar Pradesh. So he was living there along with the western Ikshwakus. So this is also a mirror image of the eastern Ikshwakus, Rama and Dasharatha were part of. So there are western Ikshwakus. They are mentioned in the Rigveda as like kings like Trasadasyu and Purukutsya. Purukutsa. These are all western Ikshwaku kings mentioned in the Rigveda, who are in the western side. So these western Ikshwakus give asylum to Samvarana Bharata, and Vasishta forged an alliance between the western Ikshwakus and Samvarana Bharata. As a result of this, there is a mention about a marriage of Samvarana with Tapati. And Tapati is nothing but a princess from the western Ikshwaku lineage. And because of that blending of the western Ikshwakus and the the third branch of the Bharatas, we have Kuru lineage emerging. And the Kuru lineage slowly moved, went back to their ancestral region, that is Kurukshetra. Can you move the slides? Yeah. So then here, okay, this is in between something else happened. The Anavas also like that migrated to the westward. They are also slowly coming back to the Kurukshetra region because after Sudas, the powerful king Sudas, the remaining kings, the descendant kings were not so powerful. There was Sahadeva was a very powerful king, and after Somaka was another powerful king. After that, the Panchala got declined. So during that period, the power center of power shifted to the Anavas as well as to the third branch of the Bharatas. So the Anavas made the comeback to the Kurukshetra region, and this is also mentioned as the occupation of the Anavas into the Vara Prithvya. And in the Puranas, it is recorded as the Asuras conquering Swarga because Kurukshetra was considered as Swarga Bhumi. So they were returning back. So other people find it not very comfortable. They said the Asuras have conquered Swarga. And this is also captured in this Zoroastrian text like Avesta, where they come back and started living in Kurukshetra. The Kurukshetra is mentioned in the Western text as Varena, which is four-cornered region. So it's in three texts, this entire history is captured in three texts. The Avestan Zoroastrian text captures it, and Rigveda is capturing it, and as well as in the Mahabharata and Puranas, capturing it in a different way, the different terminologies and different perspectives. And because of that, the Trutsus who were living there, that is the descendants of Somaka, they shifted southwards. So this is the time where the Anavas almost like typically like an ally for the third branch of the Bharatas. So when they were there, the migration, the whoever went westward, they came back. That is the Kuru, the descendant of Samvarana Kuru came back. And this time they changed the Varaprathya name into Kurukshetra because Kuru was a very powerful king. So when Kuru reoccupied the Varaprathya region, then the name Kurukshetra was given to that same region. That is how in the Mahabharata we get the name Kurukshetra. And from there onwards, that place is called Kurukshetra. And this is not captured in the Rigveda because this Kuru was somewhere in the late Rigvedic period. So this transformation is not captured in the Rigveda, but in the Mahabharata it is very well captured. And then the southern part of the Kurukshetra is renamed as Kurijangala. That is to the south of, if you look at this Trutsus, that is basically the Panchalas. So because of this all power struggle coming in the Kurukshetra region, they moved to the southwards. So we can see a kind of scenario where this Trutsus or the who are transforming into the Panchalas were almost occupying the Delhi region with the Shifa river and whatever later known as Indraprastha. They were already there. So this information is captured in Ramayana because in this when there is a situation where Vasishtha is sending messengers to bring back Bharata after Dasharatha died. So when they are in their journey, they are mentioning about Panchala in Kurijangala. So that is very much different from the narrative in the Mahabharata because in Mahabharata, the Panchala was to the east of the Kuru. Now you are having a scenario of the Panchalas to the west of Kuru. This is reflecting with the Rigvedic information that the Trutsus or Panchalas shifted southwards. And southwards means they are in Kurujangala. And the same is captured in Ramayana, where they are exactly in the southward as expected. So this way, the Rigveda and the Ramayana are corroborating and giving you a previous location of the Panchalas in the Kurujangala region. Now you move a little bit. Yeah, so this is also a kind of comparative analysis. Maybe I'll move forward. It's something else like a name of a river, which is there in Rigveda and the Ramayana, Sharadanda river, which is mentioned in Rigveda Sharapa. So just move it. So here, if you look at the Kurus, that is the actual ancestors of the Pandavas and Kauravas, they also start moving in the eastward direction. They had earlier in the Kurukshetra location like Asandi. From there they moved to Varanavati and then to Hastinapura. And in the Mahabharata, what is actually captured is there is another westward movement of the Kurus from Hastinapura to Indraprastha. That is none other than the Pandavas. So you can see Draupadi coming back and occupying the Indraprastha, which was earlier ruled by her own ancestors. That is, previous Panchalas were ruling there. So when Dhritarashtra was banishing the Pandavas to Indraprastha or to the west of Yamuna, he was actually telling it's a political statement like, okay, you have married Panchali, then go to the ancestral place of Panchali, live there. I mean, that time it was a very forest, it's completely wasteland. So that was the kind of a political statement Dhritarashtra's made, and they were forced to be living in the Indraprastha. Of course, they after that they made it Indraprastha, the city of Indra, the best city, and we are now in Delhi in that same city. So one is what we have seen in slide is the migration of the Kurus and Panchalas reflected to three ancient texts: Rig Veda, Ramayana, and Mahabharata, and it is like a peeping into the past through three windows. And you see people the migration exactly where we expect them to be. Like in the Rig Veda, you know that in the late period when they were weak, we went southwards. Exactly in the same place to the south of Kurukshetra, you see them in Ramayana. And after some time, as expected, we will see them moving to the east of the Kurus and establishing cities like Ahichatra and Kampilya to the east of the Kurus, because Kuru was already taken over the Ganga region to the west side. So the Panchalas settled into the east in the Kampilya and the Ahichatra region. Just move. And the Anus, the Anava migration, who are the Daitya Danavas or Asuras in the Puranas. Again, that is reflected. I'm not going into details. And another point, because this is again Ikshvakus, how I told about Western Ikshvakus going to westward. Similarly, Eastern Ikshvakus came to eastward, and you see them in Ayodhya, like Dasharatha and Dasharatha and Rama all around in Ayodhya. You can see that very much well corroborated both geographically and chronologically because of the triple analysis of Rig Veda and Ramayana and Mahabharata. And there is a Dyaus Dhara consensus of Kurukshetra war, 1973 BC, which is actually you can say because of the consensus both in the archaeoastronomy as well as in the archaeology. This is a very rare kind of a consensus. I'm only talking about the consensus in which an archaeologist, Dr. Sanjay Munjal, and an astronomer, that is Dr. Ashok Bhatnagar, almost converge into the same period into the for the Kurukshetra war. Whether this is the real one, still we are not knowing. I mean, that is the kind of churning we need to have further. But as a geographer, I cannot fail notice this particular consensus. But I will definitely look with my friends who are fully focused on the chronology to come up with the correct answer. So another thing is that one biggest conclusion that I have is both the material culture of the Harappa and the Rigvedic culture I see as similar. They are having same geography and chronology. And this I can tell with a lot of conviction because of my analysis. That's it. Thank you.